Moses, the guy who parted the Red Sea, the lawgiver, the deliverer, he's gone. And now every single eye is on his successor, Joshua. I mean, can you even imagine the pressure?
So yeah, Moses has passed away up on Mount Nebo, looking out at the land he would never get to enter. And now the mantle officially passes. God himself gives Joshua his new mission, and it's a huge one. Lead the people across the Jordan River and finally take the land that was promised to their ancestors centuries ago.
Now here's what's so cool about this. Where is Joshua's strength supposed to come from? It's not about having the biggest army or the smartest strategy. God makes it crystal clear. Your courage is directly tied to your obedience to my commands. This has nothing to do with human bravado. It's all about divine assurance. Basically, God's faithfulness is what will make Joshua brave.
Okay, so Joshua has his commission, and he immediately runs up against his first major roadblock, the city of Jericho, which was famous for being basically impenetrable. But before the battle even gets going, a totally unlikely hero shows up from inside the city walls.
So Joshua sends in 2 spies to check the place out, and they end up finding shelter in the house of a woman named Rahab. Now, you have to understand, Rahab was a complete outsider, a prostitute living in a pagan city. But she had heard the stories about the God of Israel, and those stories had sparked something incredible inside her: faith.
In this moment, this really gets to the heart of the whole story. This isn't just about a military takeover, it's a spiritual one. For Rahab to make this incredible declaration of faith, seeing God's power way beyond her own circumstances, it leads her to risk her own life for these spies. It's her faith, not her background, that ends up saving her and her whole family.
So, what's the brilliant military strategy for taking down this fortress? Well, there isn't one. It's a ritual. I mean, this plan makes absolutely zero military sense. It's just a pure test of obedience and trusting God's command, no matter how absolutely bizarre it sounds.
And wouldn't you know it, just like God promised, after 7 days of marching, the very second that people let out this massive shout, the walls of Jericho just came crashing down. The key takeaway here is huge. This victory wasn't won by clever human plans, but by God's power being unleashed through simple, trusting obedience.
So, they're riding high on this unbelievable victory, right? The Israelites move on to the next town, a much smaller place called Ai. They're feeling confident, maybe a little too confident. And this is where the story is about to take a sharp and pretty devastating turn.
Instead of another easy win, the Israelites get completely routed. They're defeated and they're humiliated. The contrast couldn't be more shocking. See, Jericho was all about the power of complete obedience. Ai, on the other hand, becomes this painful lesson in the poison of hidden disobedience. So, what on earth went wrong?
Well, the problem wasn't a military failure. It was a heart failure. God had given a very specific command. All the loot from the pagan city of Jericho was to be devoted to destruction. But one guy, a man named Achan, secretly kept some of it for himself.
The message God gives to a distraught Joshua is honestly chilling, and it reveals this crucial truth. The sin of just one person had impacted the entire nation. It's a really harsh lesson, but it shows that in this community, personal sin can have corporate consequences. God's holy presence and willful disobedience just can't exist in the same place. So after dealing with this sin and their camp, the Israelites learn a pretty vital lesson. And as they continue their conquests, the story makes it more and more obvious who the real warrior fighting for them actually is. Right before another major battle, Joshua has this profound encounter. He meets this figure with a sword drawn, and he asks him, "Are you on our side or are you on our enemy's side?" And the answer is a total game changer. Neither. I have come as commander of the army of the Lord. Joshua just falls on his face and worships. He realizes in that moment, he's not the general here, he's just a soldier in God's army. And this new perspective is put on the most dramatic display you can imagine. During a battle against a whole coalition of kings, the enemy is on the run, but daylight is fading. So Joshua makes this unbelievably audacious request. He asks God to make the sun stand still in the sky. And God does it. He stops the sun for nearly a full day until the victory is complete, showing everyone that he is the Lord over all creation. Now, all of these battles, all of these lessons about faith and failure, they were all building towards one single goal. After years of fighting, the major campaigns are finally over. It's time to claim the promise that started this whole journey hundreds of years before, with Abraham.
This timeline gives us a really great bird's-eye view of the whole thing. You see, it starts with Joshua being commissioned, taking command. Then comes the symbolic crossing of the Jordan River. That's followed by years of conquering all those key cities. This all leads to the claiming, when the land is finally divided up among the tribes, and it culminates with the nation being settled. Every single step was a part of God fulfilling his promise.
And right here, this is the grand summary of the entire book of Joshua. It's just this powerful, definitive statement about God's faithfulness. Not one of his good promises failed. Every single thing he said would happen, happened. His word is good.
But the story doesn't just end with them dividing up the land. It ends years later, with an old Joshua gathering the nation together one last time to give them a final and truly poignant challenge.
Okay, so picture this. With a whole lifetime of seeing God's faithfulness, from the walls of Jericho falling down to the sun standing still, and also having seen the tragedy of disobedience at Ai, Joshua stands before the next generation. He lays out their whole history for them, and then he calls them to make a choice about their future.
He challenges the people, choose this day whom you will serve. But before they can even answer, he makes his own declaration, this powerful statement of personal conviction that has just echoed through the centuries. And so, his story leaves us not really with an answer, but with this timeless question for every one of us. After everything you've seen and heard, who will you choose to serve?